building your self-esteem certainly is one of the things that almost everybody is talking about and thinking about. It seems like anything that you want to write, any tape you want to make, if it's about self-esteem, people want to know. I don't know anyone who doesn't have a self-esteem problem in some area. Maybe they feel good about themselves in this area, and this area, and this area, but this area they don't feel good about themselves. I don't know why there's so much emphasis on it. Maybe there always has been. I think in my day, not that my day isn't now too, but I think when I was growing up, I never heard about self-worth, self-esteem, and that type of thing. I think they called it inferiority complex, though. I heard a lot of people talking about so-and-so has an inferiority complex. But I also thought that there were a lot of people that were really, truly thought they were great. Now, it's been a lot. If I've ever run onto a person who thinks they're great, I don't know who they are. Most people who act like they think they're great, of course, have a tremendous self-esteem problem. And the more insecure you are, the more you have to put on the act. And so the people who really act superior, of course, I always am so sorry about it, because you don't have to act superior if you are superior. And therefore, those are the people usually with the greatest self-esteem problems. And I feel so sorry about it, because most of us react to those people as if, oh, they think they're somebody. They really think they're important. So then we back off from complimenting them or building them, because we're hurt by their attitude, and we think they already think we're great enough. I might say to some wife, building your house, you think I'm going to build him? He already thinks he's the greatest thing that ever lived. I don't believe it. I really don't. If there's anyone who has a healthy self-esteem, they usually don't have to let you know how great they are. So that's one of the greatest, I think, right, if we could get that settled right off the bat. And I know when I act the most confident is when I'm probably the least confident. The first time I walked out before the Nationwide Spectacular, I was shaking in my boots. You know that, don't you, Mrs. Moffat? I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know why they even came to the thing. I couldn't imagine thousands and thousands of women coming for one day from Maine and California and Alaska and Texas and Florida and everywhere. I just couldn't imagine it. And I thought they're expecting something's going to happen a lot better than we're able to produce, because I didn't know why they came. And I was so scared they had to almost push me out. And the ladies who worked with me came behind me, and then someone buzzed the telephone by the pulpit. And I hadn't cased the place out. You know, I should have done that. But I didn't know how to answer the telephone. And I just stood up there before all those people and looked up at the PA booth and said, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And they had to try to motion to me and talk to me. Or I think maybe Mrs. Colson got up and came up from the organ and answered the platform telephone to tell me what the PA people wanted to tell me. I believe that's what happened. But I had walked on like no problem in the world, you know, because I was so frightened. And I think we all have whistled in the dark. I mean, and it's the best thing to do, because if you are scared, if you act as if you're not afraid, a lot of times that feeling will even rub off onto you, or people are so surprised that you're real and that you get scared that they feed back to you such encouragement that you're able to say, hey, people, and really, I'm scared to death. I don't know what I'm doing, which I think I did that first time. I said, I don't know why y'all came. You're crazy. And then they laughed all the more, and I was at home, because I realized that they were feeling with me, empathizing with me, and there had not been women's meetings before that time, and they knew I'd gotten myself into a mess. I had just planned for a couple hundred women to come to Isles Anderson to help us with the paper, and just put one ad in the Sword of the Lord. That's all. And all these thousands showed up. Of course, I think you could probably have a restroom cleaners convention at First Baptist, and everybody'd show up for that, too. Or maybe a janitor's or whatever. I mean, whatever they have, you know, just like the youth conference, 7,000 kids. You know, they'll go under a mezzanine, look at a television or anything, and come to youth conference at First Baptist Church. God has his hand on Dr. House. And we know that. That's obvious, and we know that it's true. And we know that people are going to come to hear what people from this place say. And none of us are that great, but God has his hand on Dr. Hiles. And I realize that more than anyone. And when we have these thousands of women, I realize they're coming because Dr. Hiles, they're coming to Dr. Hiles First Baptist Church, where God has his hand on a preacher. And it's a wonderful thing to be under the umbrella of that and catch a little of it, and of course he shares with all of us and lets all of us have any part that we can possibly have in anything. And just all he does is stand back and rejoice. But every one of us, I know some of you have surely watched the Oprah program at least once. She came to Chicago, 32-year-old black lady. In fact, she came at 28, I think, years of age, or 29. I don't have my facts exactly right on that, and has taken Chicago by storm because she tells the truth. She's so refreshing. Now, sometimes it's not that great. I've seen it a few times, and sometimes they get to yelling at each other like they used to on the Donahue show, and he had them fighting and hating each other by the time they were on. But a lot of times she just opens up things that everybody's wanted to talk about and needed to talk about. And so now she's gone nationwide as of September 8th, 1986, into 150 or 180, something like that, markets. And she's just 32 years old. And just yesterday I heard, I didn't see it, but I was even out, but I heard that she said, now I have the boyfriend I want to be with. I don't believe she's ever been married. And I have a successful program, but my weight is so out of control that that's a cloud over me all the time. So as much as Oprah is taking the nation, and Donahue, I guess, is scared to death from what the papers say and everything, because it looks like she's going to take him nationwide, as much as she's successful in that one area, and in every other area, she said, this area is going pretty well, is what I was told, this area is going pretty well, but my weight, I feel bad in that area. So there's Oprah, someone who is succeeding like that woman is succeeding, and Marshall Fields puts her in a new outfit every day. I guess she never wears the same outfit. It's a phenomenon. It's really something. And yet she has this area that puts a cloud over her all the time. So I know that there's very few people who have a good, healthy self-esteem. Not, boy, am I somebody, but God has made me who I am, and I'm doing the best with what he's made, and I feel pretty good about how my life is going, and I'm trying to do what he wants me to do. Of course, I suppose I do not know that Oprah's saved. So if there's a big void in her life, it might be the Lord, and she doesn't know that as far as that's concerned. But we as Christians even have these big areas in our life about which we feel I'm nothing. And, of course, there are a lot of Christian workers who don't make it because they let everybody know that they feel like, well, I'm nobody. So everybody believes them. If you feel like you're nobody, then everybody says, yeah, I guess so. It's not true humility. Humility is having a proper estimate of yourself. It's not true Bible humility. It's not I'm fearfully and wonderfully made type thing. But yes, I have some areas God needs to finish yet. It's not. It's a I'm nobody. I never will be anything. I never have been anything. And I don't care how wonderful the person is, and I don't care how much they do. You say, now how could that person feel bad about themselves? They're beautiful. They're smart. They have money. This, that, and the other. If they've been told by some major person in their life, by looks, by tone of voice, by words, by actions, whatever, if they've been told over and over and over by a mother, a father, a grandfather, the nurturing figure in their life, that they're no good, they believe it, whether they're a lot, whatever they are. So however many times you tell a young lady, you're pretty, that doesn't matter. They think, yeah, that's all people think about is that I'm pretty and I'm an airhead. And if they're told, if they've been told over and over that they're nothing, then they have to get a massive dose of Scripture before they ever, and keep a massive dose of Scripture. They'll have this problem. Most of us go to the grave fighting the same problems we've had since childhood. So they'll fight this problem or else not fight it and give in and hurt their children and their children's children by this I'm nothing attitude type thing. This isn't a humanistic thing. Aren't we wonderful? Aren't I great? It's not that. It's God is great. to make something as wonderful as this human body. Though we might have hurt it by eating the wrong things, by putting the wrong things on it, or whatever, still the fact that we can move our hands, move our fingers, our brains tell our mouths what to say, and we can say words, and one foot goes in front of the other, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And that Psalm 139, of course, is a tremendous self-esteem chapter. It tells us just what God did for us and what he's done for us. But I thought of some things that might help us feel a little bit more like God's in control and we're in control of our lives. And it has to do with taking a stance. I know that taking a stance, I know that they talk about that in karate, and it means taking your position. And if a lot of us knew what our position in life was going to be, we'd be much more confident. But the thing is, we don't know what we're going to think about anything. Before we think about some position, we have to check with our friends. And if we just knew biblically what position we were going to take about something, if we knew biblically what position we were going to take about something, it would help us so much. For instance, if you know what you're going to do or how you're going to feel about getting rid of someone, a child in your home, the child's not doing right. Are you ever going to just disown a child? Now, maybe the child can't live in your home because the child's not going by some standards that are going to hurt the child's younger brothers and sisters. Okay. You certainly don't want to have a child in the home who is doing something terrible and is not going to stop, an older child, and going to hurt the brothers and sisters. I know that's a difficult situation, but do you ever say, I'm going to disown the child? Does God ever disown us if we've accepted Jesus Christ as our personal Savior? No. And that love must go on down to other people. That doesn't mean you can stay socially involved with everybody that you know. But don't ever decide you're going to get rid of someone. I'll just cut relations with them. There's no one who's surely so bad that you couldn't send them a card, a note, give them help if they ever needed help. Is there anyone in that bad in your life? Let's think of the worst thing we can possibly think of. All right, I have a friend who is in prison for murder as a student. And he's in prison for murder. He is not bad enough for me not to write to. If the person were a prostitute, are they so bad that you couldn't send them some cute little card, Ziggy card or something, say, remember the time maybe when you were a child and you did some real wholesome, fun thing together, and remind them of that? Could anyone get so bad that we have to get rid of them? Now, I'm not saying you still be around them socially. I'm saying, because who you're around socially, you let your guard down with those people. And therefore, you will become like those people. If they're your social friends, you will become like them. So why don't you decide what you're going to do about getting rid of someone, and decide that every person is valuable. What about things that are taken from you? Perhaps God allows something to happen like happened in our house in Chattanooga, Tennessee. My husband was at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and I was home for my sister's wedding. I was home in Nebraska. And one weekend when he came home, he put the key in the front of the duplex door at Temple Village in Tennessee, where we were supervisors at Tennessee Temple, and turned the door, and he didn't have to use the key. It had been opened and the key broken, the lock broken. And he looked at where our new air conditioner that we still owed Sears for was, and it had been taken out the window. Then he looked out the back door, and there was a trail of hangers going out the back door. They had emptied all the closets. Why they'd want our clothes, I certainly don't know. But evidently can sell them for something. And they had taken any guns, we didn't have a lot of precious things, but a little sterling silver my folks had given us for our wedding present, a phonograph, a piece of equipment that was a record player type piece of furniture, and they took all our jewelry, which of course costume jewelry, but class rings that were gold, and so forth. Took all our jewelry, and things were taken from us. But I'd already decided not to ever be worried about things. People are more important than things, and I thought I knew who did it. I thought a child I taught in an orthopedically handicapped class, but later it was found out he was responsible for over 100 burglaries in the Highland Park area. Some older men used him and took his things and sold them and gave him just a little bit of money, and he was about 8 years old. And he had been over to my home just before I left, and I had foolishly told him I was leaving. And I thought, okay, if being in with people has made it so I lost things, so it be it. Things aren't really that important. I like them, and hey, give me anything you want. I like things a whole lot. But if they're taken, I'm not going to waste any tears over it. No thing is worth crying about. And we couldn't even remember the things that were taken, so we didn't need them that badly. The poorest person in here has more than they need. We all have in America more than we need, even poor people. Maybe not just exactly the right type of things they need, but hey, when you get down to the end of your life, sometimes older people are over at nursing homes with just a little bag of precious things that they tie on to their walker and keep to their walker, because they know that that people are going to steal from them in the nursing home. Maybe it's a woman who once had a 5-bedroom home. Then she went to an apartment, and now she's down to a little bag of precious things in a nursing home. And she knows she's got to keep them right by her, or they'll be stolen from her while she's sleeping, or some of them are blind or paralyzed, like Keith Fry, and his cologne and all that he likes that makes him makes him feel a little bit like a man, is taken from him. They can't leave it there. And so don't even get attached to things. I mean, sure, you want to take care of them. If God allows you to have things, good, take care of them. But decide now how you're going to feel when things are taken from you. You don't want to allow people to steal from you, because it's because of them, not because of you. You're not hurt. That's just things taken from you, but they're hurt. And take that stance for life, and you've got it all taken care of. I'm sorry for people who steal. And I have to do the right thing because of them. Now, you're getting things taken from you. It usually isn't that bad. And of course, the Bible tells us to lay up treasures in heaven where thieves cannot get through to steal. So we know exactly. And then better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great, great things with trouble. Then what about something good happening to someone? I can remember so often watching Elaine Colston at First Baptist Church at the organ. Whenever anything's announced that's happened good to someone, her face lights up like it was for her. If you decide right now you're going to rejoice with those who rejoice, and that's all taken care of. Then if someone gets something that you wish you had, I'm not asking you to watch the Miss America pageants, but back in your days, you probably did sometime or other watch. And you know how the last ones, they come up and go weekly. Now this is number one. That means those others of the 10 didn't get it, and they go, we sort of clap weekly, and sort of with a sickish look on their face, Or you've been where you didn't get to. I've been there. Wasn't elected for an office, or my kids didn't get cheerleader or a position on the team they wanted. We've all been there. And it's very difficult to go, yay, her kid got it, woo, it's very difficult. Or, wow, she got cheerleader and I didn't, wow, you're saying I didn't. But if you decide to go the Bible way, rejoice with those who rejoice, and it's settled. Then whenever anyone else, even if they think they've got something to rejoice about, even if you aren't glad for them, maybe it's not something that you're involved in at all, but maybe someone got engaged to a boy that you do not think is right for her. But she's happy. Now, you don't have to go up to her and say, oh, that's great that you're engaged to so-and-so. You don't have to, but you sure can say, oh, that's a beautiful diamond or whatever, cute, if you can hardly see it, you can say cute or something. I mean, you can say something. And if she's happy and she's rejoicing, rejoice with her. Unless she's saying, hey, I'm glad I found marijuana or something. If it's completely against the Bible, you can't rejoice. Wow, you're on drugs. You're strung out. Hey, Gray, wow. No, I'm not talking about that. But if it's anything that is at all that's not against the Bible, and they're happy, then be happy with them. Sometimes I've known people to receive a lot of money, and I thought it'd be better for them if they didn't have it. But if they think it's good and they're happy, why not rejoice with them? God will take care of it if they're not supposed to have it. He'll take care of it. People, if you get that settled for life, it'll make you feel so good about yourself, and you'll feel, I'm doing what God wants me to do. At least in that area, I can rejoice with those who rejoice. And then, how about when something bad happens to someone? You may not think it's bad. People, you may think I'm really bad. I don't know. And maybe I am. Maybe Brother Howes wouldn't do this at all. I don't know. Or want me to. But I'm going to tell you something. I have sorrowed with girls who have come into me and said that their married boyfriend they were having an affair with cut it off. I'm not sorrowing that the married man got right with God and went back to his family. I'm sorrowing with the girl who thought she had someone who loved her. And she's just as hurt as the person who's been jilted or whatever by the legitimate boyfriend. And so if my standing there and saying, oh, good, it's all over with, glad, boy, she won't come and counsel with me. I sorrow with her first. I'm really sorrowing she ever had the affair. But I'm also sorrowing that she's so hurt. If someone else is hurt, I want to be hurt with them. I want to sorrow with those who are hurt. And if you decide that, then you just got it settled for life. Now you say later, and you come to the time later when they can talk with you, and you can say, here's where the good points are. And here's what you can do about your hurt. But boy, when people hurt, and I imagine every one of you has been there one time or another. A boyfriend or a girlfriend quit you, or something happened to your mom or dad or brother or sister. A work scholarship girl in my office today is burying her only sibling. Eugenia Plunkett's brother was killed junior in high school, killed in a head-on collision Sunday night on the way to church. And she's burying that brother. I think that's just like if it was David for Joy, my daughter. Or if I have two sisters, but it's just like if it were Doris or Catherine, then I get the picture. At first I think, oh, that's too bad. Then I think, wow, too bad. And my thoughts are with her all day long. I can't feel as she feels, but I know my position. I know what my position is about it. How you're going to be like someone else. People, you're never going to be like someone else. 2 Corinthians 10:12 says, for we dare not make ourselves of the number or compare ourselves with some that commend themselves, but they measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise. A difficult verse, but read it over and over again. I believe you'll get the idea we're not to compare ourselves with someone else. If we try to be like someone else, we're not going to be able to do the job God had us conceived to do. We're everyone different. We're only to compare ourselves with our best self, the self God wanted us to be, what he had in mind when he had us conceived. He had a plan in mind. And that's what we want to try to find as best we can, that plan. But we can't be like anyone else. That doesn't mean we won't take from this person and that person and another person and add to our lives from different people. But to try to be like somebody else, just exactly, I wish I were like somebody. How are you going to, no, you can't ever be like someone else. So when someone comes to me, sometimes a girl will come to me and say, so-and-so wants me, but he wants me like someone else. No, then he doesn't want her. There's no, you know that right now because she can't be someone else. If he changed her to be someone else, she'd become physically or mentally ill because you can't be another person. And so that's not who he wants. If he wants her like someone else, you can't have instant somebody else. You know, I want sort of like a spiritual Marilyn Monroe or whoever the sex symbol is of today, a spiritual whoever it is today. That doesn't work. The man's got to keep looking until he finds someone that he forgets all about. I got to have this, and this. Hey, I've got to have her. She's who I want, and we'll grow together. You know, and I'll help her grow. I'll lead her. You know, that's what has to happen. Have you decided about friends? You know, have you decided? Hey, don't wait till you have roommates or best friends in a club, get into a certain circle of a missionary society, and decide then whether you're going to like them or not. Or like about your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law, you're going to like them. Just decide now you're going to like everybody, and that takes care of it. You don't wait and say, I got to see how I'm going to like my roommates. You just decide you're going to like them. And no matter how different they are or strange, or you're going to learn from them, you're going to like them. Just get it settled once and for all, and that's all it takes. And then you know how you feel for life. I never had a roommate I didn't like. But, you know, I was closer to some than others. But there was never, and I had 30-some through my years in college. I had 30-some different roommates. And I can't remember one that I didn't like. I was closer to some than others, and I liked different ones for different things. And I like to do different things with different ones, but not dislike. No. I mean, just decide right now you're going to like everybody. It takes care of everything. It's so easy. It is really simple, and it makes you feel a lot better about yourself because you don't have to go ask them, now, what do you think of her? And what do you think? Then you make up your mind. No, I'm not going to ask anybody what they think of anybody. I've already got my mind made up. I'm going to like them. Oh, who's going to be your work scholarship workers this year, Miss Evans? I don't know, but whoever they are, and if Eugenia doesn't come back and we get a new one, whoever it is, I'm going to like them. There's no problem about it. I don't have to wait. Now, they may have to learn some different things, you know, but and they may be a different type person. I have a new secretary this year, and Miss Yoshida said, I don't do like Mrs. Underwood did. And I said, of course not. You don't have her strengths, but neither do you have her weaknesses. And she didn't have your strengths and weaknesses. I didn't expect I was going to get another Mrs. Underwood. I expect a Miss Yoshida at her best. And the secretary before that, too. It just takes care. It's so easy. It's so simple. How are you going to feel? What's your stance on some friend of yours getting another friend? Decide right now. I'm going to be glad for anyone she can be friends with. I'm going to be glad for anyone he can be friends with. And then you don't, boy, she's got somebody else, and she was with me all the time. Well, if she doesn't still come back to you once in a while, she never was your friend anyway. And the more people you share with, our hearts are big enough to love all kinds of people. And we can just add her friend to our list. And then you don't get this sulky, where were you at 1 o'clock today when we usually meet? And then you know what they want to do? They want to run from you. And then you don't even save the friendship you did have. Even if you feel a little jealousy about it. You say, oh, were you with Judy or whoever the other girlfriend is? Boy, she's neat. That's great. And you know what? After you say you're lying, after you lie for a little, call it lies if you want to. But think through how she is great, then it won't have to be a lie. And then after a little while, you'll really feel that way. Say what should be said, what's biblical, and God will give you the feeling. It's beautiful how God does that. If you want to be content, if you want to have control over your life, if you want to have confidence, if you want to have a healthy self-esteem, decide on what your stance is going to be about these things. People ought to know a little bit what to expect from you. That if your friend ought to know a little bit what she can expect when you add another friend to your life. They ought to be, well, hey, I can expect she'll appreciate that, and that she'll want to get to know her too, and won't want to always be with us, and then we'll expect that I'll come back to her. Then they'll know a little bit what to expect. Be unshakable. Be unshockable. I was so happy when I got the word yesterday about how Eugenia was doing. She was, of course, brokenhearted, crushed. But she was going home and saying, I'm going to go help my mother. I had through this. I mean, she didn't go into hysterics. I mean, as sad and tragic as that was, none of these hysterics, tears, of course. But be unshakable and unshockable. Things are going to happen in your life, folks. You've heard us say over and over, we get a death notice at least once a week. I'm in the girls' dorms alone at Hyles Anderson College. It's a grandfather, a brother, an aunt, an uncle, a mom, a dad, someone. And so you decide, that's going to come. That's going to come to me someday. I got it about my mother already. And it's going to come to me about my dad someday. If in the normal course of events, if he goes before I go. So you decide how God's going to help you act like a Christian. That doesn't mean you don't cry. But how are you going to act? How are you going to feel about something bad happening to you? It's cancer. People, why wouldn't it be cancer? The Bible does. It's going to be 1 out of 4. The Bible doesn't tell us you live this good and this many things won't happen to you. That's not a Bible principle. Why me is not a biblical reaction. My husband and I decided when we were in our early 30s, just before I started having back operations, that if we were sick the rest of our lives, we'd had 30 years with almost nothing happening. Physically or our folks were all living at that time. There just wasn't anything bad that had ever happened to us. And some folks, like Brother Ken Smith at Hyles Anderson College, things started happening bad to him before he was born. He was brain injured and had cerebral palsy. And he's had to walk with terribly crippled legs all of his life. And with people making fun of him all of his life. Why won't something happen to us? That's how the world's going to see Christianity. By how we act when something bad happens to us. Why not me? And besides, if we were going by sins, I've done enough bad in my life that something bad can happen to me. And besides that, I don't even know if it's bad. The Bible says it's good for me that I've been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. I don't know whether cancer's bad. Maybe it's good. How do I know? How are you going to take correction or criticism? Students, how are you going to take... you got 50 demerits for this. Decide now. Ladies, how are you going to take your husband saying, I thought I asked you not to do that? Decide now how you're going to take it. I try to take it quietly and slowly, not react. And if I'm hurt or embarrassed or humiliated, go crawl in my bedroom and cry a while and come out with sifting through the criticism until I've gotten something that might help me. I've gotten my share of criticism. I've gotten a lot of criticism. But some of it has been very constructive, though the people gave it to me destructively. It helped me because I sifted it and figured there was something in it that I really needed. And even though it was given to me wrong, in a wrong way at a wrong time, wrong, still, by my shutting up, I learned something. Then the person felt like they could give me correction again, and I got some good again. Decide how you're going to take correction. Are you going to go up and down the aisles of the church? Do you know what she said about me? And get sympathy all over the place. And get everybody to hating the person who corrected you, or else get what they do sometimes is sympathize with you and turn to somebody else and say they should have told them that. And you just stir up more criticism against you. Quietly and slowly. Decide how you're going to run to be alone with God and get over your hurt or anger. Sift through and get what you need, and then maybe the correction was unjust. Then you're able to go in and say, help me understand about this. And then sometimes people have come to me finally and said, Mrs. Evans, I don't know why I got this. And I look at it and I say, you shouldn't have. I don't know why you did either. But they could have blown it by coming when they were first upset. Miss Evans, somebody gave me this and there, this and that. And then they would have needed demerits for being rude and insubordinate. And even though you're maybe not in a school, maybe it's in a home, you'll pay the penalty too if you go shooting off the mouth before you think. Decide whose side you're going to be on in an issue. Both. Because both have some right. Then you don't. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? I'm not going to be on anybody's side. I'm sorry. I'm going to be on both their sides, because there's probably some right with both of them. I've seen little children, 7 and 8 years old, who've got this down really good at 7 and 8. Daddy says, "What's Mama doing?" They're divorced or they're separated, and the kid has rights to the daddy, and so he's visiting Daddy, and Daddy says, "Is Mama going with? Is any man over with Mama? How's Mama treating you? Do you have any?" And little kids have said, "Don't make me talk against Mama. I love her, and I love you too, Daddy." And then Mama said, "When you were over at Daddy's, did he have any food in the house? Was there any beer in the house? Was there any beer in the refrigerator?" And the little kid says, don't make me talk about Daddy. I don't want to talk about him. I love him, and I love you too, Mama." And Mama says, but look what he did to us. "I know it, but I get to go visit him, and I have to go visit him, and please." I've heard little kids who can do that. And that's what I want to say to, when a girl comes in, "Boy, they did this in my dorm room. She did this to me." I'm for the girl who came in, and I hope the girl can handle it, and I can help her handle it herself. But if I have to talk to them together, I'm for both of them. And usually when you end up, both have a side. It's unbelievable. Teachers who, kids come in from off the school ground, "He hit me, teacher, he hit me," or "He stole the ball, he did." And the teacher who says, "Well, I'm just going to go get that kid," and if they just wait and bring both kids in, usually they find out that there's some truth out of both of them. They're both seeing things from a different way. In my classes at Hyles Anderson, sometimes I haven't had it for years because the kids are expecting it, and I won't now for years again probably. I've had somebody run in shooting a gun with blanks. And something start, real big, a scuffle. And a security guard drags somebody out. And afterwards I say, "Okay, everyone write down what happened." They get so mad at me when I do that. Because they're really scared. Maybe a girl's crying and everything else, because she's scared. So they get really mad at me, so I don't do it much anymore. But anyway, I write down what happened. Almost every paper is different. Because most people see things from their viewpoint, from their background. Or for instance, when Dr. Hyles is preaching sometimes at church, he'll say something about 1/3 through the message that arrests my attention, and I sit there and I lose the last 2/3 of the message. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying, really? Is that? Wow. Then that's why this happens and that happens. And I lose the last 2/3 of the message, and therefore, when somebody asks me, "What did Dr. Hyles preach about?" I tell the first third of the message. When I've been sick with chemotherapy and so forth, I deprogram people about what the messages are about at church. I get one view from this person. I get another view from this person. I get about 5 different things that the message was about. Because it depends on the person's personality and their background and what their needs are as to what they heard. After a major spectacular at Hammond, we get back returns from the people. I said, we'll get in the returns here. And they start coming back about 2 days after the spectacular. And one woman wrote in and said, "When you said thus and so, I had not, and neither had anyone else. And I asked everybody who's there, did we ever say this during the spectacular?" And they didn't hear it. And they said, "That helped me more than anything else you said." And it wasn't said. But that's the person needed it, and they interpreted something. Sometimes I can figure out what they interpreted, what we said that they interpreted. But the Holy Spirit suits a certain need to their heart, and they were gone the rest of it. One time they said, "What Nancy Perry said." People, that's a friend of mine who has rheumatoid arthritis in North Carolina. She was a visitor, and we introduced her, and that's all. And all these major speakers, Dr. House, Mrs. House, all these major speakers were there. And this person wrote a whole letter about what Nancy Perry meant to him. Well, Nancy Perry was in a wheelchair with rheumatoid arthritis, and probably this person had someone like that too. So she zeroed in on that person. I can't take sides. There's, our minds are too different, too complex. I'm not going to take a side in an issue. Oh, unless it's a biblical thing. Do you believe the Bible's the Word of God? I'm not talking about that, folks. I'm talking about human relations and everything I say about taking your stance for life. How are you going to react to change in someone? They've lost weight. They've gained weight. They've lost hair. Wow! Or, how'd y'all like it when you were little kids and you came to a family reunion every year? Oh, I knew you when you were just about this high. Unless you know it's really, really positive. You don't really like it. You're fatter, older, balder. You're bigger. You were a little baby when they last saw you. You already know that. And you don't really, unless it's, hey, did you get false teeth? You look like you got a wig on, that type of thing. Now, if it's, boy, do you look nice, that's a different thing. We can accept that. How are you going to react to change in someone? Even people, if they've changed spiritually and gone down the drain and they're backslidden, they really don't need you coming up and saying, boy, you sure have gone down the drain. Natural. If you ever help someone who's backslidden, probably it's because you treat them natural. You see some girl that doesn't wear pants, and you walk down the street and you see her and you just look from the waist down. Huh? I didn't know you were wore pants. You're not going to help them. Don't look at what. I saw a graduate of Hyles Anderson one day riding across her bosom, where you're looking right there to read, and tight pants on and everything. I kept my eyes on her eyes, folks. Her eyes looked the same. And she's a girl I loved and still loved. I did the pants and the T-shirt and whatever. She's a girl that hasn't died yet. And therefore, there's a chance for her. If I don't get all bent out of shape about the breeches and the riding across the chest. You know what I mean? How are you going to react to change in someone? Oh, what about when an authority fails or is wrong? No problem about that. I decided that back when I was at Tennessee Temple School. Someone accused me of worshiping Dr. Lee Robertson. I loved him so much, still do. They accused me of worshiping Dr. Lee Robertson. And I thought, do I? And I thought, let's see. If he absconded, is that the word, with all the church's money, left, ran away, whatever, with all the church's money, where would I be? Same place I was before he left. I'd be sick and sorry and disappointed. But Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that's who he's been pointing to me. The Bible's the Word of God, forever settled in heaven. I'm okay. I'm disappointed, hurt, sorry, sick for him. I got it all settled. So whatever he does is not going to, it doesn't. Everybody's going to have heroes and heroines, and some of them are going to fail you. But I'd rather have Christian heroes and heroines than the world's heroes and heroines, and you're going to have them. So I'm going to take the Christian ones, and I'll come out okay. Most of them will be just what they should be, as much as possible as a human being can. And of course, I'm going to look to the Lord as the ultimate, the beginning, and the end, and forever. Just get it settled. And so-and-so did this. Yeah, they're a human being, and aren't we sorry? And you can cry over it, and you're disappointed. But to everybody get into a big dither over it about your Christianity. No. If they taught you from the Bible, whatever they taught you is still true. It's so simple. It's so easy. When a marriage has already taken place, some of you will have children someday or already have children who marry someone you don't want them to marry. Maybe they marry an unsaved person and they're saved. It's against the Bible. It's against Scripture. But once they're married, you'd better step over on the side of the marriage unless you want divorce, you want another sin. If you're ever going to help the spouse know Jesus Christ, you'd better step on the side of the marriage. I'm not going to come to that wedding. It's not right. I'm not coming. That's it. I'm not going to see you anymore. how are you ever going to win them? You don't have to act like you're completely happy, but you can love the person even though you don't love what's happening. And you know what? If they ever get saved, it's probably because you love them right as soon as they get married. How many people do you know that they say, my mother-in-law and father-in-law didn't like me from the beginning, and I'm not accepting them either? Not very many people who get saved after they marry an unsaved person. But do you still want to see your daughter or son and influence them? And do you want to have a chance at influencing the unsaved person? Then you step on the side of the marriage once the marriage is taken. Simple. What about when a child has been conceived? Oh, Mrs. Moffat, they love children. They're fixed up for children. They've got a gymnasium for boys downstairs. They're natural parents. When she conceived a child for the ninth time, she had 3 miscarriages. For the 6th time, they have 5 children, and hoping this child she'll be able to deliver. People called me up to ask me how I felt about it. Are you kidding? She rears good children. A child has been conceived. Well, how stupid it would be for me to say, do I want her to have an abortion? No. So I feel great about it. That's how I feel. There's only one way to feel about when a child's been conceived. Now, maybe the mother, say a mother isn't ready for another child. And maybe she sort of gulps, and gets her. But every child should have the chance to believe they're wanted. And maybe the mother has to kind of gulp before she tells people, but she doesn't ever need to tell anyone she didn't want that child. When they start saying, now, because someone later is going to tell that child when they're 4 or 5 years old, you were an accident. Hey, wouldn't you love to be told you were an accident? Maybe you look like an accident, but you don't want to be told that, for goodness sakes. So take your stance. When a child has been conceived, I'm not talking about a child out of wedlock, folks, of course. And even then, though, what do you jump in and you help the girl. What else are you going to do? Unless you, again, want her to have an abortion. I think we're causing some of these abortions. That doesn't mean you have raw, wonderful, she's having a baby, or anything like that. But you help her. What about when someone's hurt or sick or tired, and they say, I'm sick, and you decide whether they're really, I don't think they're really sick. I think they're just saying that. I think they're just trying to get attention. They're sick all the time. When somebody tells me they're sick, they're sick. I learned that by getting hit over the head years ago when I was a young teacher. I was a teacher in the public schools before Christian schools down in Greenville, South Carolina. My husband was finishing his doctorate at Bob Jones University. Carol Barrett from the Chicago area came to do student teaching when I was already a paid teacher at that public school. She just burned up the woods. She not only put up all the kids' things instead of her own around the room and changed artwork all the time and did the reading, writing, and arithmetic and gave them all the academics, she also went out on the playground and played with them instead of sitting along the line and being a lazy teacher, and then they get into a fight, and then the teacher says, gets all upset, and she's been sitting there gossiping with the other teachers and hasn't been watching her kids. But anyway, that's enough for that. Anyway, the girl was hired. She was such a wonderful teacher, and I was jealous of her because she was such a great teacher, and she was hired to teach in the 1st grade the next year. She came in September and sat there, and she didn't put up things on the wall. She got half of her room decorated. She sat in a chair in the room, didn't teach the kid. I thought, yeah, I judged her right away. Mrs. Evans, Marlene Evans, the judge. I judged her, pounded the gavel, took care of it right off the bat. I said she was student teaching in that wonderful way, so she'd get that grade and get hired, and then now she doesn't care. And then about a week later, she started asking me, and we had an old 49 Plymouth with rusted holes through the bottom that we'd paid $150 for, and she made me ask me to take her to Greenville to a doctor. Oh, yeah, now she's going to say she's sick. I know she's more sick than I am. And 2 or 3 times I took her. That's so mean. And I went in there, and finally I said, you can take the bus back home. And here's where you can get the bus. But then after that time, they called me to the hospital because she had knocked her toe against the end of the bed and started bleeding because she had leukemia, and she died by Thanksgiving. I don't decide anymore whether someone's sick or not. Usually when somebody comes and tells me they're sick, if I wait long enough, I find out there really is a physical problem. Maybe their emotional life hasn't helped their physical problem and they hurt each other, but usually there is found, finally, a physical problem. And if someone says they're tired, I believe them. Just decide you're going to believe it. And then when somebody calls in and says, I can't come to work, when you're a principal or you're in charge of a group of people, and they call in and say they're sick, you say, I'm really sorry. You don't start questioning how sick, what happened, and all that junk. And if they're sick a lot, you try to help them get to someone who can help them, but you don't start showing them your doubt. What about borrowing and loaning? Decide that you're not going to loan anything that you don't. There's only one thing I won't loan. I won't loan my mother's friendship quilt. It has her friends and relatives wrote their own name, and then it was embroidered from 50, 60 years ago, and that I can't replace for any amount of money. A car, I have insurance on it. They can cart the furniture out of my house, and they do for plays and weddings. I can replace it or can get along without it. But decide what and if you're ever going to co-sign for someone, decide you're willing to pay for whatever you're co-signing for, or don't co-sign, because otherwise you'll lose a friend sometimes. If you're not willing to pay for it, because a lot of times they won't pay for it. If you're not willing to pay for it, don't co-sign. Does it take care of some problems? Then you just tell people, we've made a policy, I'm sorry, we don't co-sign. And I've turned down even my own best friends and relatives. I'm sorry, I can't. I don't loan dresses because I love you so much. I don't want something to happen. That just takes care of it all. Take your stance for life, folks. Decide what you're going to think about everything about human relationships. It's going to help you to have a healthy self-esteem. It's going to help you to have confidence that only God can give you, and you're going to be the Christian God would want you to be. Take your stance for life.